Where are you going? Okay, so basically this session is very much, if I can just give you that, Chris. Today's sort of session is, it's not long, so it's only about 45 minutes. But some of you that joined us yesterday will know that LCRIG has been embarking on a piece of work around AI and safety and things like that. And one of the things that has become clear to us is that more authorities would like to adopt AI in that safety space, but also there is concern about what that might mean from a sort of, I suppose, an insurance, from a legal, from a, from an authority perspective. So about 6 months ago, Forbes Solicitors, who we've been having some conversations with, and Chris will introduce himself, we thought that actually this is an area that, because so many authorities said to us, well, we would like to adopt more AI around safety, but actually we don't know some of the implications or this, that, and the other. We thought the best way for us to really get to the depths of what is the crux of the problem, that would allow us to see if we could prepare either guidance notes, whether we could see if there's things we could do to make life easier for local authorities. But we can't do that if we don't get some of the inputs from yourself. So I am going to sort of just give you a bit of paper just to sort of jot down. But mostly this session is going to be discussion with Chris, myself, and Sean, just to talk about what are the challenges and then get some sort of feedback from yourselves, really. So Chris, please introduce yourself. That would be great. Just sort of talk about even some of the conversations you and I been having over the last few months and some of the challenges that you guys are seeing, not just about AI and safety, but just about the sort of where everything is going at the moment.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Chris Booth. I'm a partner at Forbes. I head the public sector division at Forbes. I've been qualified 29 years, just coming up for, and 23 of those years I've been working exclusively for the public sector, principally in the field of highways claims, defending highways claims. So I've got a fair amount of experience of that. A number of specialities under my belt, industrial disease claims and insurance fraud. Not immediate bedfellows, but that's the way life's taken me. I'm a big proponent of computer-based automation to streamline what we do. That's not something that you quite often hear a lawyer say, because everyone thinks that we have quill pens and everything's done in a yesteryear. Quite the contrary. I think one of the things that I've been a big advocate for is to get under the skin, and this is something that Paula and I have spoken about for the last 6 months or so, get under the skin of what exactly is AI. And I fully confess I am no AI expert, but I am fully committed to using computer-based modelling to expedite what we do and to streamline what we do. And it just got us thinking that actually there's a lot of talk about what AI is, what it can do, what computers can do for us, but everyone seems to have this idea, we need to use computers more, we need to use AI more, without actually fully understanding what we want to use it for, how we use it, and how we interpret matters. But it is a fascinating subject for me. I'm not just about practicing law. I like to think of myself as a fairly pragmatic, hands-on lawyer rather than an academic lawyer. You might have seen from my profile, if anyone's taken the interest to look, that my background, I don't actually have a law degree, strangely. There's various ways into the law, and bizarrely, I've got a chemistry degree, would you believe? And then I cross-qualified into law. So I do think that does give me a different angle on the way that we practice law.
And I thought also, you've been working, you guys came and presented at Strictly last year about some of the insurance sort of perspective. And this is the other sort of challenging area that we're hearing from local authorities is that, some authorities will use sort of AI either in that safety space or whatever, and others are much more reluctant. And And Chris, you and I have had some very interesting conversations about that insurance side of things. Can you just talk about some of the challenges between that space and what could potentially be in this space, and what you're seeing from the local authorities that you deal with?
Yeah, when I speak to local authorities, they all understand the need to embrace this, but the sense I get is that the vast majority of the local authorities are reticent at fully jumping into this. What they want to do is they want to use it. They see the need to expedite what they do, to speed it up, to look at enhancing the way that they do that, to do the work they do, because they realise that resources are limited. But it's almost like they just can't let go of their experienced personnel doing it, and what they're wrestling with at the moment is it's a bit of a cyclic argument. If they just carry on doing it the way they've done it for years, then they'll never do it any different. But if they then embrace a new way of doing this with artificial intelligence and computer-based modelling, then someone, well, I suppose this is an argument, does someone then have to sense check what the computer is doing? If they do, then you still need the experience of the people coming in behind it to sense check it. If you don't sense check it, then you're just letting the computer do what the computer does, and you're going to lose those skills. And in fact, this brings another conundrum from within the legal profession, because legislation needs to catch up with what we're doing. I mean, just for instance, the Data Protection Act is only 7 years old, but the Data Protection Act actually specifically prohibits profiling of people without some sort of human intervention, which rather suggests that we can't go towards a fully automated AI solution, because someone has always got to bring this back to the human table to sense check that. So that just brings a conundrum. The other aspect of this, and again, this is not something that you might necessarily expect to hear from the legal profession, the other conundrum is, could we actually be negligent in not using AI, as opposed to using AI and using it badly? And this is something that Sir Geoffrey Voss, the Master of the Rolls, who's the second most senior judge in the country, said earlier on this year, and he actually suggested that lawyers may well be negligent if they don't use AI. Now, that raised a huge number of eyebrows within the legal sphere. You can, I'm sure, appreciate that if a doctor who is analysing scans for, let's say, breast cancer, yes, artificial intelligence, it does it so much quicker, it spots things that the human eye can't. You can understand then why not using AI would be a problem. But not using it within the legal profession, maybe that's a step too far, I don't know, but it does bring about another potential conundrum. But the other thing that has been wrestled with is this lack of discretion. So if you use an AI modelling, the computer is programmed to do what the computer is programmed to do. Does the lack of discretion cause a problem? Or some would say, actually, quite the contrary. It's that discretion that brings in human fallibility. Controversial point, perhaps, I don't know, but that's one issue that has been wrestled with by a number of people.
And to put you slightly on the spot, what do you think that might mean? This is not your legal response, but what do you think this might mean in this sort of highways perspective where, and we'll come on to Sean in a minute, who we know sort of trials lots of innovative technologies. What do you think it means from a sort of a claims perspective, from a sort of a legal challenge perspective? What does that mean from a sort of even a coroner sort of perspective? Are all those sorts of things, starting to be conversations? Has it already started happening? It'd be great to sort of share your experiences of that.
I don't think we're there yet. The courts are as you might imagine, the courts are way behind this. I mean, the courts are still wrestling with doing what the courts should find it easy to do, which is list hearings and get people before a judge. What the courts are nowhere near is understanding how they might interpret computer-based data, because all the way from law school up to where I am at the moment, there's been a rule of thumb, if you will, with lawyers that documentation is not self-proving. You need a person to present that evidence. So putting computer-based data before a judge and say it speaks for itself, the court's going to really struggle with that without some further guidance, without some further legislation, and we are way off that, in my opinion.
Mm. And Sean, as a person that we know, not just as a fantastic LCRIG board member, but also chairing the AI task group, you guys are known for adopting new innovation, trialing new innovations. And in that sort of safety space, what's been your sort of experience?
I think the experience is that, yes, we in Oxfordshire trialled a lot of things. I'm aware of lots of trials from different authorities as well. We had a debate yesterday, the whole issue of trust. The big problem that we found is the people involved in it. We're all very keen to see innovation. We're all very keen to see things moving forward. And, you're absolutely right, that human intervention will never get away from having some kind of human intervention. But we, as an authority, believe it or not, and I'm sure there are many authorities that are worse or better than we are, we're quite risk averse. And it's working with our legal and insurance teams to actually bring them on this journey and say, look, this is the way that we want to move forward. In terms of the inspection type, artificial intelligence, machine learning, video capture and everything else like that, I think there's 5 trials we've done. And you would say, well, why haven't you adopted it? Because of those 5 trials, we've then got to do a business case to find out which one's the best, which is the most affordable, which one links into our existing systems most effectively. And then, because it's taken such a long time, the initial trial that we did was 2-3 years ago, and things have moved massively forward. So it's that rate of change. And we could have introduced something that was, the dog's BBs right at the start, but it's 3 years out of date now. So I will keep pushing innovation and striving to get that, but there are more people on the market now. You go out into the hall there, and the number of presentations, whether it be a startup or whether it be an existing organisation, there's much more than one model, and it's not just one size fits all. You've got things that, a box that's this big, a little camera that's this big, a phone that you can use. There's that many systems now. It's almost becoming difficult to choose what is best. And I think the biggest thing, the experience that we've got, and you're a breath of fresh air, sir. You really are. I'm being polite, but yeah, you're a breath of fresh air in terms of, that. And I understand that there are some legal people that are human, and I think that's helped. It goes back to that issue that, sorry. And I think, that has helped, the fact that being practical, pragmatic. So what have we found? We've done trials. We're very open to trials. We'll push it and push it and push it. But then it's the conviction of our legal insurance people.
So is it less about, because often we'll hear the argument from suppliers that, councils aren't adopting it, but actually, are you saying that from your perspective, it's actually some of the internal mechanics that sometimes sort of block that?
I would say so. I mean, I don't know if there's any other local authority colleagues in the room that would, just quick show of hands or nod of heads. But you're absolutely right, because although there's 130 odd local authorities that are members of LCRIG, something like that.
145, yeah.
I said 130-ish. The ish has got a parameter of 15. But a lot of that is individuals and not necessarily the wider organisations, which I think is why it's really refreshing to have Chris's view. And, next time we have part of the discussion through the AI task group in terms of insurance, we actually need to widen that group out into, some of the colleagues from Chris's human perspective. But yeah, I think, and I've jotted down a few notes and said the same thing yesterday, the biggest barrier, one of the biggest barriers to the adoption of AI, and there was a stat that came to mind yesterday that Microsoft have done a survey through business leaders. The AI use in senior business leaders has gone from 50 to 75% in the last year. So you multiply that growth of people just using AI, it's going to be massive. But we also need to define what is AI, because I think there's still that simplistic terminology that we spoke about yesterday. Yeah. You've learned how to spell it. Now you need to understand the definition of what it is.
So who in this room has trialled AI safety systems, whether it be sort of, spotting defects or any other? Yeah, a few of you. And not putting you guys on the spot, but what's been the biggest sort of barrier for that? Sean's picking someone in the audience. Just because again, what we really, as we've always said from these sort of things, we really want to make sure that we can work with Chris and others to help local authorities know where either the guardrails should be or where we can, help smooth the sort of the road, so to speak.
I think we've done several trials for several different systems, and it's understanding which each system does. It's like you said, not one size fits all. Everyone has a sort of his own USP, and it's understanding what that system's going to do for us. And I think on top of that, thinking about legal, it's understanding the legal picture, how that's going to be accepted within that legal framework, and moving down and sort of defending claims and that sort of piece for us. And because we go to court quite regularly, so how is this going to fit into that? Into that sort of world.
And what about others? Let's pick on you guys for a moment. What's your experience?
Probably the same thing about the legal sort of thing. So our safety inspectors are quite nervous at who stands up in court if an AI has detected a pothole or not detected a pothole or that sort of thing. But we also use it for road condition, which is a little bit easier because you haven't necessarily, it's a longer term thing, so you haven't got that urgency on the legal side of things. So
actually, I'm going to ask Chris a question at this point, because that's a really good point. So Chris, it's quite often that some people will use it for road condition, but they won't use it for safety. So do you think that that's just going to continue to stifle the industry if we've got, as we all know, there's safety inspectors that, there's not exactly a sort of a mass of them out there. Do you think that's going to sort of cause, is there going to be a crunch point, or what are you guys saying?
I think it will be is this on? Yeah. I think there will be a crunch point. I mean, whenever I speak to our local authority clients and insurers, I don't know whether it's the experience of the people in this room, but we're told and we're seeing time after time that the biggest problem they've got is recruitment at all levels. They're losing people to retirement. They're not being replaced. They're losing people to retirement, and then their job is being subsumed by somebody else. And one authority that I act for, who I won't name, has now got what they term a FAIR manager, which is fraud, audit, insurance and risk manager in one role. Now, how on earth that person can do justice to those four big areas, it is beyond me. But it's the same with the highways inspection teams. If I mentioned it before, it's a cyclic problem. It's if you try to automate because you haven't got the people to do the job, and also you see the need to streamline this, then that's great. But you really do need someone who knows what they're doing to second guess that, to make sure it has been done correctly. And then the more that you rely upon the AI and that person then retires, you haven't replaced them because they've been using AI. So you get that cyclic problem. And then, of course, when you come across a stickler of an old judge who wants it done the traditional way, and you've put the evidence in the new way, suddenly you've got a big problem.
And what's people's response when you've heard that? I'm going to pick on you, Ian.
Don't pick me. I was daydreaming, so I didn't really listen to everything that he said. To be perfectly honest with you, because I was thinking back to...
It was inspired, honestly.
Yeah, clearly. I was thinking back to why am I not using this system? And the reason I'm not using this system is because we are risk averse to a degree, particularly with the safety inspections. We're basically waiting for another authority to take this to court and say, have they won? Have they lost? Bottom line. And also, yes, I could go and put cameras in all my bin wagons. Yes, I could collect all this data, but how the hell do I manage all that data? Where's the system that actually downloads all that data? I'm not running around bin wagons every night pulling out SD cards. It needs to go into something central. It needs to be a better system of some description. Yes, we're hitting the crunch point where we're losing inspectors. We had 4 inspectors. We've now should have 3, but 1 is about to retire on ill health. 1's been suspended for 12 months. We've got 1 highway inspector effectively in our borough at the moment. So the managers are having to do highway inspections. So yes, you talk about a crunch point. That's why I'm sat here today, because I want to hear what you're saying about the legal aspects of this, because we're at that start of that tipping point. Am I going to bring in freelancers to do our highway inspections, or a third party? Or, you know, do we say, right, we're going to push the button on this, but then again, there's 7 systems out there. Which system do we pick? Why do we pick one over another? Yeah.
Can I just add to that? Because you say you go to court a lot. You've got your own parking space and everything, which is really good. But I heard 2 or 3 weeks back, and there was a court case, and people had been doing a video survey on the inspections, and the judge saw the video. And it was
yes, I saw that.
Clear cut. And he said, well, it's evident, you know, and that was going back to what you were saying about, you know, the computer says this is the output. So, you know, computer says yes, and the judge should say yes. But it's that difficulty there. But you got the extreme there, that the judge just simply looked at the video and awarded in favour of the authority. So I know it's a slightly challenging question, but do we need AI for inspections, or do we just need to video everything? I don't think that's the case, but I'm just here to try and instill a conversation, because, you know, you're absolutely right. We're massively data rich. We're data obese, you know, as I can say, because I'm a bit of a fat bugger. But we need, how do we eat that data? How do we use that data? We don't have the skills to do it. And that's where AI has got to come in. It's that utilization. You will not lose the human. I remember stood in this very room talking about campfires and elephants' toenails. And it was one of the things that we were talking about in terms of, is this going to affect my job? Am I going to lose my job? And I think we've moved on from that discussion a little bit, because there's more acceptance that there will be a human intervention somehow. But to support the fact that you've got one guy wandering around trying to inspect, you need to be able to use the tools that are available to us to maximise the effectiveness of those skills that we've got, till such a time where we recognise as a sector that we need much more from a skills perspective in a lot of things that we do. So slightly contentious questions there.
Yeah, but again, what's great about what Ian said is, who else in the room, that's the situation that's happening in your local authority, that you've maybe got safety inspections that are sort of coming towards the end of their career, or you've got smaller teams, budgets, or anything else. What's it like in your authority?
1 second, I'm coming. Need some steps in.
So I'm Peter Simpson, Hertfordshire County Council. So we've recently re-tendered our term contract, and Ringway was successful. And part of the sort of innovation is using AI to be more efficient and cost effective. So there's an affordability, but it's also about authorities moving from risk averse to being risk aware. And I think that's where the sector guidance comes in, so that it gives authorities the assurance, so that you're not being picked out as an individual authority. you're parked. Obviously, there's safety in numbers, but you're given the assurance that maybe there's a transition to using the tools, but some managed human intervention in terms of auditing, because a system and a tool, in terms of is dependent upon the data and the correctness and the accuracy. So there needs to be some sort of assurance that we're not just using the tech blindly, and at the same time where it can be demonstrated that it is a useful piece of evidence, but you need that human aspect, because in terms of if it's a claim, pothole and so on, it isn't just about the video, the clarity, the definition. Can you take accurate measurements? Because sometimes that hinges on the particular defect, but also it's being aware there's different highway users. Some highway users are more vulnerable. So, if there's an incident, particularly cyclists, there may be certain defects for cyclists and motorcyclists, which the risk to them in terms of perjury is far higher than when you're in a vehicle. So it's that human element, as opposed to just looking at video footage, that needs to give that additional assurance. But I think that what would help all authorities is that sector guidance from respective legal insurance teams, and the likes of when we go to market as an authority, that to an insurance company that is saying, oh yeah, we can insure you, this is going to be your premium based on your back history. But a lot of this stuff that we're doing is now business as usual, but we haven't gone that other step, because the guy said that there isn't a legal test case at the moment. It's going to happen. But if the majority are using this as business as usual and they've got those safeguards and checks in place, it just gives more rigour to it, so that when you present the evidence, it's holistic. It's not just saying, oh, well, here's the tool, we've used that. It's looking at it as a complete piece of evidence.
Yeah, I'll get Chris, and then Ian, you've got a comment, haven't you?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really interesting analysis, and that's absolutely spot on. I mean, one of the things that I mentioned in my introduction was about that lack of discretion, and I think that's really key. Perversely, under the old code of practice, when it was pure intervention levels, actually AI would probably have been a lot easier, because you could literally have just measured it at 25 mil, 40 mil, Bob's your uncle. I mean, job done. Now, of course, we've got more of the risk-based approach. So we've got to understand the risk in context of the area. Is there an old people's home there? Is there a school nearby? Is this a frequent crossing point? And it's for that very reason that I mentioned about the discretion or lack of it within computer modelling. Is that a good thing? I think that's a problem. It really is. And I'll give you an example. It's nothing to do with highways, but this is an example where I think discretion, like I say, some people would say discretion introduces human fallibility. I say actually discretion introduces something where you can use a real person situation and explain away what's going on. I was coming out back home from our Manchester office a couple of weeks ago, and I was coming out of Manchester. I was on the East Lancs. There's 3 lanes. I was in the middle lane. I was about 3 or 4 cars back from the front, and an ambulance started coming from behind me, blues and twos on, and the cars in front of me quite properly moved forward, even though our lights were on red and the traffic coming from the right was on green. They moved in front of the cars beyond the solid line to get out of the way. But where that left me was in a lane with an ambulance behind me with blue lights on and a red light in front of me. So in theory, I couldn't have gone. I couldn't go in front of the cars that had moved to one side because they'd already gone as far forward as they could. And if I did the same, I'd have blocked the junction. So I took the decision to just go through a red light because all the other cars had stopped, even though theirs was on green. And I went through a red light. And in this split second, I'm thinking to myself, right, now when I get a ticket, what am I going to say to the judge as to why I did this? And I'm going to have to say, look, I used my discretion that I've got 3 choices here. I either sit where I am and say, no, it's on red, and I'm just going to sit here because it's on red. And then some poor beggar then perhaps loses their life because the ambulance can't get through. The second one is I move forward and do what the other guys do, but block the junction. Or the third one is I go through a red light because I think that's the least worst option. And that was a discretionary decision I took, which I thought was the right one in the circumstance. Now, that's nothing to do with highways, but you can see how sometimes human fallibility creates a problem. On other occasions, human discretion actually does the greater good because we actually take all the facts and the circumstances, put it into a real life situation and say, on balance, because of my experience, that's what I decided to do, and that's what I thought. And that's what you might decide to do in a highway inspection situation. Look, this is a problem because, or this is not a problem because, you can bring in that expertise. The minute we go down the line of AI solves everything, we lose that, or potentially lose that.
Ian, you were going to add in chipping, because I know you've been using trialing and using safety. And
Yeah, it was just to pick up on the points we talked about highway inspection and asset management / highway inspection. So you've got loads of asset data, digital asset data. Lots of people have got it, videos, stills, etc. And you make asset. It's one of the tools you use to invest in your asset. From a highway safety point of view, if you're talking about, I can't see a point in time, Chris, where an authority would solely rely on asset inventory and AI interpretation to then go to court to say, well, we didn't do that because the system, we can't do that. I can't ever see it. There'll always be a time. So you'll always need highway inspectors to make that choice. And conversely, I know that some of my highway inspectors have been to court, which seemed pretty clear to us that it was going to be successful. And the judge just said, well, I put it to you, Mr. Inspector, that you missed that. When he didn't, because he was adamant he didn't. So you'll always have that interpretation. And there's lots of influences on decisions in court, isn't there, which aren't factual. That sounds a bit wrong, but you know what I mean. There's influences. Mrs. Biggins, who's 82, has had a trip. We're a big organisation. That sometimes plays into it. But I can't see the point you just touched on about. That's not in my consideration as managing the asset. That at some point in time, I can't see that where someone will go out and do some kind of digital survey with some equipment, AI will interpret it, and then that'll be part of my safety inspection regime, be part of my asset management regime and how I'm going to spend my money, but not the safety inspector. You've made some really good points there about that layers of data and information to make choices. Mm-hmm. So, but Chris, that wouldn't, if it went to court on that premise, doesn't matter how clever the AI is, it wouldn't be successful, would it, as a defence?
I don't think so. No.
All that way for that. So who in the room thinks there's ever going to be a possibility of full AI safety inspections?
Come on.
Not a single person.
That's really interesting, isn't it?
Apart from you.
No, I didn't say that. I said there's always going to be a human intervention. But it's
So-
at what level of human intervention?
So how many of you are fully using AI as part of your safety process?
Well, we're still trying it.
Yeah.
But the anticipation is.
And is that from an asset management perspective or from a safety?
Where the asset management is still being interpreted.
Yeah.
Mm.
Sorry.
So the AI you still need to interpret, but the safety, a lot of it is going to be straight from the AI to our fixing crew. And until we're confident with it, we've still got somebody there doing that extra step. But the anticipation is eventually, when you're confident with it, you won't need that step.
So people that aren't aware, this lovely lady here is from Surrey County Council. Do you just want to talk about what you've been doing over the last few years to sort of talk about that sort of transition? Sorry, put you on the spot.
Thank you. Yes,
Sure.
My role is more the condition, but obviously I have an overview of the safety as well. So we're using a company that will detect the potholes. At the moment, it's only potholes, so it's only our driven inspections, which is quite key. And we do it once a month. So there's been a lot of iteration of training the AI, having it go through with a safety inspector who does an inspection at the same time as the AI. And they've got it down to about a 90% accuracy. So there's no false negatives, but there's some false positives. So the AI has not not detected anything that the safety inspector would have picked up, but it has been picking up things that they might have ignored. So we're quite confident of that level. It can be done at traffic speeds as opposed to safety inspections at the moment are done at sort of nominally 20 mile an hour. So you've got obviously that hold up of traffic and the safety of operatives. They supposedly don't have to get out as well. So you've got that no carriageway incursion. But it's going quite well. It's still in the trial stage at the moment. We was expecting to go live back in January. There's been a few teething problems, getting cameras from China, that sort of thing. But it's going to be on all of our safety inspections and going live, fingers crossed, next month. But again, there's going to be that intervention. So it won't go straight to our system. Somebody's going to have to review the footage and click yes or no if that's a defect. But
so there's still effectively a human in the loop
currently, yeah.
Sorry, yeah. So there's effectively going to be a human in the loop sort of element to it
until we're more confident, which we anticipate. But I mean, our safety inspectors are quite nervous. Like say, who goes to court on that defect?
Sorry, just one more.
Yeah.
One question is that your driven inspections on carriageway, or you can have the same approach on your footway?
Carriageway only.
Carriageway only. So predominantly a lot of.
I was just going to say, sorry, the leading light in this, and we want to, like you said, we want to get everybody's views on this. Is everyone just waiting for Surrey to adopt it and go through court for the first case?
Oh wow!
Is that what the situation is?
True. Are you guys all watching and waiting Surrey?
No, sorry. Somebody, not us.
Yeah,
not us.
yeah, because that's part of the question we wanted to get out of today. So that, sorry, go on.
Our reason for not adopting is the Section 58 defence, and our recommendation was don't implement it, leave it for somebody else to do it, and then follow their example. Let somebody else go to court first. And
I think that's been a message for such a long time. And hurry up, please.
Yeah, which might be Surrey, but it could be anybody else.
There are other authorities and there are other products out there, but it's that one question that we wanted to get out, because what Paula and I are looking to do through the AI task group is to generate that advice, that guidance to all our members in terms of how can we remove the barriers, how can we make it become business as usual, how can we do it, that this is normal to do AI data inspections and things such as that. So we haven't got long, but shout out and someone can capture it. But one thing that we need to do to remove the barriers and make sure that AI can be used on a daily basis, particularly for inspections on this one, because we had a great debate yesterday, and watch out for the outcome from the debates of what we're doing as a task group. So again, I'm not going to pick anyone out, but we've got 5 minutes less now. One thing for you to start using AI inspection for safety inspections. That table and not you. So that's two of you.
Do you want the mic?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're an industry of standards, aren't we? And so having standards around the use of it and the application of it would potentially get us to a more comfortable place around the legalities as well. So I think there's a bit of a gap there.
There's only one of you on this table. We are time constrained.
Yeah. I don't know, sort of, the guidance and an accreditation process, really. I guess the way PAS is going in a way that an accreditation for companies to sort of meet a standard, but they need to, the repeatability and evidencing that.
Oh, consistency.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, perfect. Creeping up behind you. 3 of you here. Anyone? Thank you.
Personal attitudes.
Right. What do you mean by that?
Well, people are afraid of it, aren't they? You mentioned about people are afraid of their jobs. They're afraid of what might happen if they're deemed to be in charge of something that then might be challenged or questioned later.
Who else wants to? You make eye contact. You're going to speak to me. You made eye contact. I'm sorry. Remember the days across the dance floor? Here you go. Let's have a dance.
You might as well get the last Devon person in here. You've had the other three. So I look at it from a different perspective because I'm not involved in safety inspections. I'm purely asset management. I would be looking at it and maybe questioning, in terms of if you're doing the manual intervention all the time on potholes and you're collecting the remaining defect types in your traditional method, what's the benefit? What's the point? Where is it saving you the money?
I'm going to come to you. I know you've spoken already, but we got 20 seconds.
Approved code of practice. We need something that our legal friends can lean on when, we're talking to a judge who probably isn't a specialist in highways and say, well, this is the national guidance, this is the national approved code of practice. It supports our legal colleagues as much as us.
Perfect. It's 29 seconds. See, Paula, no one's looking at me now. No one's looking at me at all. You looked. Go on, final one.
From an apprentice perspective.
From an apprentice, because it's you are the future. You're
no pressure. No pressure, Sean.
I think it's more the unknown. Nobody actually knows that much about AI. We're just trusting that it's going to work, isn't it? And we don't actually know.
I think it's that word, that trust.
Yeah.
And how do we build that trust? And you've looked in the eye now.
I think it's also the replacing of their job as well. Because they might not be too keen to adopt it if they think they're not going to have a job in 6 months.
Okay. I won't ask you because we're almost out of time. Chris, do you want to, really,
Final thoughts, yeah.
What are your thoughts, your final thoughts?
Yeah, I think one of the big issues we might face around this is the public perception of this as well. Data privacy. And I don't think that is a tangible concern, but I suspect people will be concerned of seeing a lot more cameras. I mean, when I was walking from our office back to where my car is the other day, I was ruminating over this and thinking about the camera angle to this. And I just decided to just count the number of CCTV cameras that I saw from my office to the car park, and it's only about a 10-minute walk, and I lost count at about 38 cameras, and that's not unusual. And I think if we then go down the line of fewer highways inspectors, actually with a PDA or something similar, and we end up going down the line of lots more camera-based products, then I think, particularly if we went down, let's be really controversial and say drones to inspect rural roads, you can see how people might then start saying that this is getting out of hand. We, yet more cameras, yet more video, yet more data privacy issues. And I don't think there needs to be concern about data privacy, but I think it's an easy one for people to hook into. I mean, there was a case in 2022, Fairhurst and Woodard, where, I mean, most people have got a Ring doorbell these days, and this went to litigation because one neighbour was complaining that the adjoining neighbour was breaching their privacy by using a Ring doorbell, and was actually successful in suing the neighbour. Now, people then start trotting this out and say, oh, well, this is going to be a big problem because of cameras and can you use a Ring doorbell? That was a high watermark because the neighbour that was sued was basically a nutcase and had about 15 cameras and all sorts of spotlights. And it transpired that one of his camera could pick up voice recording from 60 metres away, which the judge said was onerous. But you can see how cases such as that hit the headlines. People get all twitchy about it, even though actually it's very much the high watermark, and of course the Daily Mail then took it out of context. But I think that is something that that could be a real problem that people start getting really twitchy about.
Yeah, and I think not worried, but interested to understand why a legal professional is looking where the cameras are on his way back to the car. Anyway, can I just so that you can finally wrap up, if you don't mind? I think just for observations from myself. I think it aligns to a lot of people's thinking to what we've heard today. The issues we need to, who's going to step over that fence first. But I think mentioned it before, and Chris, it's something to build upon what you're saying. The courts are way behind. We talk about standards, we talk about industry guidance, but we need to, one of the pillars of LCRIG is around about collaboration, and that's not just collaboration within the sector, but collaboration with those peripheral sectors that impact what we do. And I think there's a piece of work, Paula, I'd like to further that conversation in terms of the legislation. What is the legislation that's required? And I think that will come from the development of the guidance and standards, as it were. But I think that's a really interesting thing that we need to do.
I think from my perspective, this has been everything and more that I hoped we would get from this session, that validates some of the challenges that we're trying to help sort of unpick as more and more people. Either we get a lot of suppliers, everyone in the room, who some suppliers will say to us, we really, really want councils to adopt more of our innovation. We know it can have all of these benefits. And then local authorities that are stuck and caught between, as you say, an evolving sort of court world amongst all the other sort of litigation issues and everything else. So it's absolutely somewhere that I think we'll try and do something in this space on. I think, if I'm really honest, nobody else is. So it could take a lot of unpicking, but, do keep an eye on what we do. If you've got any more sort of insights or comments, do email us at sort of LCRIG. And as part of our sort of 2-year programme of sort of looking at some of these more thornier issues of AI in the use of the more practical elements of our service, not just the sort of the highfalutin stuff, but the more practical elements, then we're absolutely going to keep sort of digging away. I think the one question I have for you at the back, sorry to now put you on the spot, is when you say industry guidance, do you mean DFT guidance? Or do you mean something that is adopted by industry that legal profession has confidence in? Because they can sometimes be two very different things and also two challenging things.
Yes, I think my comment was around the practical application of how we use AI, because I think we were talking more around the accreditation process for the actual taking of the data. The only observation I would make is in the past, where we have had non-statutory guidance documents, that has caused challenges over what the right thing to do is going forward. So I think it has to be led from the DFT, because then it is a standard across the industry that we all have to follow. I think that's the only way we're going to get one direction on it.
Wow. That will be really quite an interesting sort of challenge, isn't it? Because DFT is not like the behemoth it used to be, where it would give all sorts of different standards. But that's a great one for us to sort of think on, actually.
It's almost like we can make some suggestions with our colleagues, with the numerous conversations with DFT that we have.
Yeah. Right, we've overrun by... Oh, we have a question, very quick question.
Yeah, I understand that the current throughput practice is not being reviewed.
It is.
I don't know if it's referencing current technology, etc.
So, and through UKRLG, that will be maybe some form of guidance through that. Sorry, some form of, because in terms of court cases, that's one of the key documents that's referenced, but it's how it's applied locally. So if it's a risk-based approach, what's your approach? You need to document that. Are there any departures? As long as you document your approach and it's risk-based and it's a test of reasonableness, that gives you an assurance. So I think it's that sort of guidance that we're looking for, that we can say, yeah, it's an approved code of practice. That's what we're aligning to. This is our specific application to it in whatever area. And then hopefully that will be sufficient.
Yeah, and I think that's the big sort of fingers crossed moment, because, DFT also wants to be clear about also not stifling innovation, whilst at the same time It's all about sort of local democratic sort of accountability and how each local authority defines their own sort of set of circumstances in a legal sort of system. Anyway, thank you so much for coming along, for getting involved. Genuinely, it is a really challenging, thorny area. So give yourself a big round of applause, just because it looks good, isn't everything? And thank you so, so much. Thank you, Chris, for coming. We will do more with Chris. Thank you for Sean for your sort of involvement. And if you've got any more comments, do come and just jot them down before you leave, or anything else.
And I think there's a slide that might have a QR code for CPD.
Excellent. Well remembered, Sean. Thanks very much. Bye.
And I've not seen the roaring fields in so long. I know I've grown, but I can't wait to go home. I'm on my way, driving at 90 down those country lanes.